Hi, my name is Amber Moore, and for this class, I read the novel called Show Trance. It is a nonfiction novel by the author Elliott DeLine. The book takes place from his point of view. He is the main character, and it is about his life as a female to male trans person, trans man, and him trying to navigate through life in his mid-20s, as a lot of people are. The main difference being that a lot of his struggles and experiences are based on him being transgender or have to do with that, and a lot of the adversities that he faces, the average person might not. So, yeah, to get into it, it first talks about the constructions of inequality uh, through the social construction. So the concept of social construction is that why and how these conforming boxes came into place. Boxes, that being a lot of time categories, labels, um, and having to do with the novel. A lot of it is based on sex and gender. So, for example, male and female is the social norm. That's what a lot of people refer to when talking about another person, their sex or gender. And um, so, for example, anything outside of, identifying as male or female. So, whether that be intersex, openly being transgender, uh, non binary, there are a lot of things that could identify out of either of those um, labels, that those socially constructed labels, uh, that makes it seem inferior or different than the social norm of, again, say male and female. So anything outside of that is, again, seen often as inferior or threatening to the social norm. So that is where I feel a lot of social construction in general stems from, is out of fear or lack of understanding or willingness to understand. And it especially shows in this novel, in my opinion, because a lot of people do not seem to understand the concept that he is transgender, female to male. He identifies as male, but he is open about his journey and his life and being transgender in general, when a lot of people feel like that should be something that is hidden and kind of kept secret, and you want to pass, um, or just be seen as your final sex, what he transitioned to, which was male. But of course, he is more open about it. And sorry, the concept of being a transgender male threatens the adopted social order and the social norms. So his uh, identity in general is achieved through social interaction. So this can mean like socialization, for example, how you were raised, where you grew up, who you were around, what were the social influences that may have shaped you as a person, and what you learned from those. So, for example, some people may have grown up in a not so accepting or loving, maybe prejudice, racist, homophobic um, environment. Therefore, they might grow up likely thinking and feeling those things because that's what they were conditioned to know and think, coming up as a person. So I feel that is where the construction of inequality kind of ties into that, the threatening of social norms from him being trans and not identifying as a binary sex, and his exploration of gender as well. So, going into maintenance of inequality, social systems and institutions in place usually operate under social norms and social conformity. So, just accepted ideas and thoughts that this is this, that is that. So, again, going back to the example of sex, male and female, anything outside of that is not normal. Um, Therefore, it is questioned and often not understood or not willing to be understood. So, the interpretations of being male or female, that's where that kind of comes into play. And this is where gender can come in also. So, the social construction of gender is typically what is associated with each sex, like what characteristics or attributes. So, for example, a lot of time, females, girls, women are often thought to like pink princesses, be submissive, quiet, etc., because of their sex and identifying as female. That is the gender typically associated with that, the gender behaviors. And for male, it's often the opposite. They're thought of as, you know, liking blue, being tough, assertive, confident, dominant, a lot of things that, again, are just social characteristics that are often tied or expected to be tied to being male. So, in the book, an example that I have is an experience where Elliot goes to the hospital or medical center to get treated and tested for sexually transmitted diseases, STDs, and there are these systems in place. Um, this being the nurse comes out with a questionnaire for him to fill out about himself, um, birthday, sex, etc. That being the main one. And there were two boxes, male or female, and he medically wasn't all the way transitioned to be anatomically male. So he created his own box and wrote transgender, F to M, female to male, to let the staff know. And when the nurse came and collected it, she said, "Why did you create this box? Pick one." And he, embarrassingly had to try and explain. It's complicated, but yeah, so those systems in place, creating the norms of the binaries, results in the possibility for, or the chance for, inequalities and stratification in general. So this is the maintenance of inequalities that we continue to adapt and perform and run, function as a society under a lot of these systems that are already put in place from generations prior and past concerns and norms and things like that. And experiencing inequality, that is the large theme of this book that I feel. Again, it talks about a lot of his own personal experiences of discrimination, harassment, oppression, violence, etc. Um, a lot of things, adversities, struggles that people in the LGBTQ plus community face that other people who are not in that, for example, straight, heterosexual, cisgender people would probably not maybe understand or be able to relate to, I guess. So, sorry, notes. Yes, so an example of this, a lot of the book is about his sexual exploration and his feelings and thoughts, and having to do with him being transgender. Elliot was often used kind of as a sex object, where he is gay and into men, and a lot of these men were either bisexual, secretly gay or bisexual, or kind of exploring, but a lot of it was, kept on the low, not talked about. And this basically, he was used as an experiment or just a sex object to fulfill other people's wants and fantasies while disregarding his identity and personality and everything like that. So, experiencing inequalities, he experiences a lot of the LGBTQ plus community does. And it's often a lot of negative things from society because they do not fit in the social standard norms which society has set in place. So going on to the example of an upstander, Jake, which is his friend and eventually his boyfriend towards the end of the book, he was an upstander in the scenario when Elliott was in the hospital or urgent care because of the STDs. He was in so much pain, he could barely talk, communicate, function. So Jake was the upstander there when the medical staff were trying to use the wrong pronouns, address Elliott as she, her, and talk about his vagina and insisting on doing the test that females get, although there was an option that males do, which was only a urine test, I believe. And Elliott said that he wanted that and couldn't continue to communicate, so Jake had to be the upstander and advocate for him and say, hey, this is what he wants. He is requesting this as a person. And if you are able to do it, you need to respect that. And it validates his identity, who he is, and it just saves everyone a lot of pain and embarrassment and frustration. So I feel like that was a big upstander moment within the book, although there were quite a few. And resistance, this was often shown in call-outs and questioning. Hey, you used the wrong pronouns. This is what I go by. This is who I am. I identify as trans, and yes, I am open about it. That was a lot of Elliott's attitude, outlook throughout the whole book. And just resisting the fact that these inequalities were in place and trying to break down the barriers of those social norms a little bit and again correct people when they were wrong, especially referring to him because it is his identity and who he is as a person. And then social change. This was often addressed or portrayed. There was an example, there was a community program for LGBTQ plus youth teens in the New York area where a lot of the setting took place. And Elliott was very involved, and this was for teens to, talk about things, learn about places with special knowledge of the community, especially transgender people. One being a medical facility that Elliott eventually went to and met a nice doctor who was understanding and willing to cooperate and understand him, while the other ones did not. And just being able to talk about and address a lot of those common struggles and adversities that they face within the community that, again, other people do not. So this could be seen like addressing the problems and inequalities that exist. Why are they there? Proposal of solutions. So finding, of course, they aren't able to change society as a whole, at least not all at once, but the steps towards that. So implementing programs such as the one I'm talking about with the LGBT youth, and talking about awareness, speakings, etc., and finding places and educating, training professionals, medical professionals about them and how to effectively help them while respecting them and their identities. And how this relates to my own life. Obviously, I am a cisgender female, so I do not and will not ever know or fully experience a lot of these struggles and the faces of discrimination that a lot of people in the transgender community face on an everyday basis. But my best friend in high school, he is transgender, female to male. And so I was with him through a lot of those things. first coming out to close friends and family. His family was unfortunately not very supportive at all or accepting. And in school, his dead name was on the roster. So he would have to go after class and embarrassingly ask that he be called by his preferred name that match his male pronouns and identity. But unfortunately, in my high school, that couldn't really be changed without parental consent. So there were a lot of issues in that. So my own personal experiences and the large takeaways are being an advocate for those who are often minorities, whether it be sexually, racial, identity wise, non conforming, just being there for people and always advocating for them, being the upstander when possible, because I feel that that is the most important thing. And Jake in the book, at the end, Elliott talked about how much that meant to him and how important that was, and how if people could do that, they should. So that is where I'm going to end because it's already a lot longer than I was hoping this video would be. My first try was 26 minutes, so I hope I covered most things. Thank you.